So I'm Dan Bamford. I'm the Deputy Director for the AI Award, working in the Accelerated Access Collaborative. My teams oversee the running of the AI Award, which is the £140 million fund that's been established to be granted over 3 years, with this year being the first year. The purpose of this panel session is really to reflect on where we've got to, having run the first round of the award, as we look forward to launching the second round of the award, which will be opening for applications in early November. We have some panelists here today who have successfully navigated the application process. And we also have panelists who I'll introduce shortly, who are involved in the development of the bidding process and help run the process during the award round. So I'm hoping to have some reflections both from those designing the process and also those who've been through it, to understand essentially what's worked well in round one, what we're going to develop in round two, and what are some practical tips and hints for potential applicants. Before I move to the panel, I'd like to give some context to the award. I'm aware Matt, who chaired the previous session, talked a bit about the role of the award, so I won't go into too much detail. As I say, the first round of the award has now been completed, with our 42 winners announced at the start of September. We're now thinking about how we move forward to running the second award, and this, as with the first round, is structured into 4 phases, with phase 1 being the earliest stage, targeting for technologies looking to do initial feasibility studies, all the way through to phase 4, which are award grants designed to support mature technologies, develop multi-site evaluations, to really support them with the final evidence-based push required to scale their technologies and present the right evidence required to national bodies, including Public Health England and NICE, in order to get the relevant guidance and support for their rollout. I'm delighted that we've got representatives from phase 4 and phase 2 here, so we'll get some different perspectives from different levels of sort of maturity spectrum. Before I introduce them, I want to make a couple of comments in relation to questions that have come in advance of the event, which relate to the sort of eligibility criteria for the second award round. So firstly, questions come in around to what extent is this award open to internationally based companies? It absolutely is open to all technology companies, irrespective of where their home base is. What we're seeking to do with this award is make the UK the place with the most advanced testing infrastructure to help AI companies, whether they're based in the UK or abroad, test and scale their innovations. So very much open to all international applicants. The second question we got in was around, to what degree does this award support solutions which are more operationally focused and around reducing administrative burden rather than improving clinical decision making? We have examples of award winners in round 1 who are focused on that operational streamlining of process, and we'll continue to encourage those applications. And then lastly, we had a question about, with COVID, to what degree does the award welcome solutions that help in this particular context? The answer is we look forward to receiving applications that have a heightened relevance given COVID, but we're looking across the spectrum and also aware that the development cycle of some of these technologies will hopefully be longer than how long we're living with COVID as it currently is. So with those opening remarks, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So I'll first go to Anne-Marie Cairns, who's the Chief Clinical Officer from Optos. Anne-Marie, can I hand over to you to give some opening remarks, and I'll move on to our other
Hi there, Matt. My video stream doesn't appear to be working. Unable to start video. Okie dokie.
We can hear you. There we go.
Oh, grand. Thank you very much. And so I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself and about Optos. So I'm Chief Clinical Officer at Optos. We're an icon company and we're world leaders in ultra-wide field retinal imaging. And we're absolutely delighted to be selected as a winner with our machine learning AI technology, which is really looking to identify sight-threatening disease and support the potential benefits of innovation through AI for the NHS. As I mentioned, the focus of our AI is for looking at saving sight in individuals, particularly we're looking at diabetic eye disease. So we're looking to support the current national screening programme, which has been in existence in the NHS from 2003 and is actually world renowned as an example of how to manage diabetic eye disease. Currently, the screening programme supports over 80 local screening programmes, both in the NHS and in private providers, and actually manages to screen over 80% of individuals with diabetes in the NHS. However, the challenge we're all finding, obviously, is that the number of patients, individuals with diabetes is rising at an alarming rate, and recent figures estimate around about 4 million people with diabetes actually in the UK at present. So that's roughly about 1 in every 16 people. So our machine learning technology is CE marked, and it's intended for screening retinal images of patients with diabetes. And getting through to this successful outcome with the award, it has very much been a team effort. We've got fantastic academic collaborators in Queen's and Moorfields, and working with InHealth and Google Health as our private company collaborators. And we certainly feel like the main benefit from our technology is to support image grader workload, which obviously currently with the COVID environment and the ability to manage the grading workload has been significantly impacted. And obviously, importantly, with this award, we're looking at evaluating the performance and the safety, and ultimately the fit within this well-established national diabetic eye screening programme. So our plans are to conduct a clinical implementation study to assess the key benefits and to support large-scale adoption.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you.
Can I introduce Peter Mountney next? Peter's the chief executive of one of our phase 2 winners, Odin Vision.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Peter Mountney. I'm the CEO of Odin Vision. Odin Vision is a spin out from UCL, and we've came into life in order to commercialize and bring to patients some technology that have been developed at Odin at UCL over about the past 4 or 5 years, and that's around artificial intelligence in endoscopy. So in the UK, there's about 42,000 new cases of colorectal cancer each year, and around 16,000 deaths, making it the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the UK. What's worrying is that actually the number of deaths is forecast to increase by about 50% in the next 15 years. And there's some evidence showing that younger people, there's a higher prevalence in younger people as well. So colonoscopy is a really critical tool in the screening of patients looking for those early signs of colorectal cancer. Doctors use an endoscopic camera to look inside the bowel for cancers or precancerous polyps, or those early signals that indicate that cancer might be on its way. And we, in the UK, we do over 1 million colonoscopies and sigmoidoscopies each year. But finding those polyps is incredibly difficult, especially when they're very small and especially when they're flat. And lots of studies have been done over the years that show that doctors miss about 25% of those polyps, those early stages of cancer. And we know that if we can increase that polyp detection rate by 1%, we decrease the cancer incidence rate by about 3%. So it's a really well-motivated, well-understood clinical problem but it's a long-standing unmet clinical need. The NHS spends about £500 million a year treating those late-stage cancers, and many of those could be prevented with better early detection. But the frustration in the process doesn't end there. It goes on with once a polyp has been found, it's then removed by the doctor and sent for histopathology to provide a diagnosis. But this adds on average about 3 weeks to the waiting time for a patient to get their results. And it's using an already overused and swamped pathology service. And the NHS, again, will spend about £1 billion over the next 5 years on those services. So there's real opportunities in this clinical workflow, in this clinical pathway, for improved operational efficiency and reducing costs. And that's where Odin Vision's technology comes in. So we developed our CADI project, our CADI product, and that's a CE-marked artificial intelligence product for endoscopy. It's a real-time clinical support tool aimed at improving the quality and efficiency of endoscopy procedures. And our product has a number and a range of different functionalities that can support that. So what the AI is doing is it's processing those endoscopic images in real time. And it's first thing that it's doing is it's looking for polyps. So it's when it's scanning those images, and once it finds a polyp, it will draw a box around it that alerts the doctor to a region that may have visual characteristics of a polyp. And the doctor can then go and take a closer inspection. And that's with the aim of reducing those number of missed polyps. Once the doctor's found the polyp, and they can go and take a good look at it, and then they can use our technology to support them to make an optical diagnosis. So we can support them and say, this particular polyp has visual characteristics of an adenoma, and that is a high-risk polyp, or it might be a non-adenoma, which is a lower-risk one. And we have a number of other features in the product around quality. So has the endoscopy procedure been completed properly? Did they reach the cecum? What was the visible mucosa? What was the bowel prep like during the procedure as well? So we're bringing all of these features and technology, but one thing that was really crucial to us when we were building the technology was we wanted to be able to build it in such a way that was accessible to all hospitals and all patients. And traditionally in the endoscopy market, new technology has been brought into the hospitals as big pieces of expensive capital equipment. And that makes it challenging for hospitals, especially smaller hospitals, to engage with that technology and to adopt it. So our technology has been built on those principles of making it accessible to everyone. And so we've got a cloud-based solution, which means we stream those images to a remote secure cloud, we process them in real time, and we send those images straight back to the hospital. And that means a hospital that does 100 patients can subscribe to using 100 procedures. They don't have to make those big upfront payments to buy in new technology. And we think that's really, really important to getting widespread adoption. So we are extremely happy to be involved in the award. This award will help us take our technology into the real clinical setting and work with Cardiff University and 10 other sites to evaluate that technology, get clinical feedback, but also do those all-important pieces of work around healthcare economics.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Peter, and extremely interesting to learn more about your technology. Can I hand over to Samantha Gann next?
Hi, I'm Samantha Gann. I'm with NIHR, and I oversee the delivery of phases 1 to 3 of the award.
Brilliant. And then finally, Jo, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Afternoon all, nice to meet you. I'm Jo Denson, and I work within the AI award team on phase 4, which sits within the Accelerated Access Collaborative within NHS England and NHS Improvement. And I work mainly on the project management for the phase 4 technologies within the product selection work stream for the award.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. we have got just over 20 minutes for questions, and I'm aware that for participants who are in sort of the Western Europe time zone, we're standing between you and lunch, so we'll keep to time. We've been sent some questions through in advance, so what I'll do is kind of pick up the themes of those questions, but also keep an eye on the questions that are coming through live, and we'll see how many we can get through. So please keep sending questions or reactions to what the panel are saying through. It's very valuable for us to understand what's top of mind for the audience. So firstly, I think it'd be really helpful to kind of kick off with Anne-Marie and Peter, your reflections on how the round one application process was, the things you found easy to navigate, but also the things that you found uncertain or not as transparent as you would have liked. And then it'd be great to hear, Sam and Joe, your reflections on what we're doing with round two to try and address and strengthen our process and make it a more user-friendly process to engage with for potential applicants. So Anne-Marie, Peter, could you start off with your reflections on how it's been?
So I can start, Peter. I mean, certainly from our perspective, the easiest part of it was obviously being subject matter experts and having spent quite a significant amount of time sort of researching both the therapeutic area and the potential applications of AI. It was very easy to understand our vision and how we believed we could shape and design the studies in order to support gaining the data and the evidence. I think some of the challenges we found was just potentially anticipating the type of questions that we would get next. There was sometimes quite a quick turnaround time in responding, which obviously when you're looking to do a very robust and very thorough response, that sometimes caused a little bit of stress within the team. But certainly on the whole, I think what made part of our application successful was having a very engaged team, all aligned around a vision, and also the ability to hone that vision on what we wanted to achieve in order to get across the line.
Great. I can add to that from our experience. I mean, the first challenge we had was to understand where we fit into which phase of the call we fit into, because companies are constantly evolving and the technology is constantly moving forward. But we sent off the pre-submission and we got some feedback. And I have to say the helpline that was there and the email address was, we were able to fire off questions and help us understand where we fit into the call right from the beginning. So that was very, very helpful. I think again, we had a vision for the company, and so we know where we're going. We had already had a lot of the information and evidence that we were looking that the application required. So in many regards, we had a lot of the content that we already needed for the application. But it takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort to actually hone that down and put it into the word count that's required. So I think if I had one piece of advice to anyone who's looking to apply, you need to allocate a good chunk of time to the submission. It's not something you can knock out in a day. You really need to take your time. And you need to have people that you are working with who can give feedback on that. And because sometimes you're very close to that technology, you're very close to the business case, and you need someone who can give you sort of a bit of objective feedback and give you an understanding or confidence that your ideas are coming across clearly to someone who is perhaps a layperson and doesn't know your field as well as you do. Great.
Thank you, Anne-Marie and Peter, for those reflections. Sam and Joe, could you talk about to the degree to which that accords with feedback we've had from other stakeholders and what we're going to do differently in round two?
Sure. So I'll start off, and then Sam, if you can fill in the gaps I leave, that would be great. So as we've just completed the first award, we're looking and working on the areas of improvement following recommendations from the applicants, stakeholders, assessors, and also the delivery team themselves as well. As Peter said, there is a pre-submission inquiry form, so I really recommend applicants looking at that form, submitting that form, and then it'll help them work out which phase they fit into as well. And there's a guidance for applications document as well, which is posted on NIHR's website. So we strongly advise that you read that before completing your application, because as Peter said, it does take a long time. We're also doing comms plans for further kind of questions and to help you with the next stages of your application. So there's going to be like FAQ documents, webinars. There's the AI virtual hub as well, which will host a lot of the award information. We're going to put together some help on making applications, like including documents like, is this for me? And there's going to be case studies from those that have applied for the first round. And so you can see like a list of top tips and testimonials from those that have been successful for the first round. And also we're going to run advice surgeries as well. So there's loads of improvement work we're doing from the first time of running the award, which was new for all of us. So, yeah. Sam, was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
So I just wanted to mention that we're working hard to streamline the application forms, because we got a lot of feedback from people that they were quite bulky and burdensome, and you know, there were quite a lot of boxes to fill out and things. So we are doing our best to try to cut that down as much as possible to the minimum required information that is needed to make, you know, an informed decision. And then in terms of the timelines and everything, we will be posting them. And so hopefully that will give you a lot more transparency around the dates and when things are going to happen and when you can expect to hear from us. I appreciate there were some issues last time with long delays from when we posted that we would provide outcomes to when we actually provided outcomes. And a lot of that was, you know, sort of delays due to COVID. But hopefully this time we won't be affected by that. And so hopefully it'll be clear when you expect to hear from us. And then in terms of some of the entry and exit criteria and eligibility for the different phases, so we, again, we recognize that that was a little bit unclear last time. There was a bit of ambiguity in the guidance form. So we're, again, that's something that we're going to work on and hopefully come up with a way of presenting that in a very clear format, so that that you can quite easily tell which phase that you should fit into.
Great. And then it's a couple of reflections on me, partly picking up things that have come through on the chat. So firstly, as well as wanting to provide transparency and appropriate sort of guidance documents and opportunity for an interactive discussion through webinars and drop-in clinics, we're also aware that the timeliness of the process is important to applicants and entrepreneurs and people thinking about how their businesses are funded. So as Sam said, you know, we had some COVID-related delays in the first round, and we also know going into this round that the situation is a very live one. But we're very cognizant that it's important to run a streamlined process that's quick, but also allows us to review the information required and allows our panel reviewers to review the information required to make the optimal decisions for the award. So we try and balance that, and we're very mindful of the pressures that can put on applicants. Then secondly, we had a comment come through on the chat around how previous applicants can get feedback on applications that weren't successful. So unfortunately, due to the volume of applications we had, over 500 in the first award call, we can't give detailed feedback on every application. What we do want to do, though, is through our guidance documents and through increased kind of transparency about what the process looks like, and those kind of interactive sessions with potential applicants through our webinar series. We want to have a kind of live dialogue around what that looks like. So not at an individual applicant level, but at a more general level, but with kind of tailoring to the specific phases. So it may be that we run our webinar series tailored for the specific phases depending on appetite and demand. So thank you to the panelists for their answers to that. Can I move on to a question we received in advance, which I think is for Anne-Marie and Peter, which is really, what do you see as the main human factors that provide potential barriers to the scaling of your technologies, and how are you thinking about using the award to help build the evidence base or to address them and or kind of investigate what those issues are?
Maybe if I start again first, Peter. So I think from our perspective, I mean, we're already looking at how we can support a very well-established NHS screening programme. So it's absolutely critical that we get our implementation correct. So, you know, from that perspective, we sort of split out our design of our clinical study into three key parts, which will allow us to initially look at safety and performance. We'll then look at sort of a technology implementation and sort of ethnographic type research in terms of that assist that AI can provide to the human, and then also look at on a prospective basis in real world and really generating great data on how AI could potentially alleviate some of the grading burden that the National Diabetic Eye Screening Programme currently has to manage, and the potential upshot that's going to see in the future as this diabetic epidemic continues.
So I can say a little bit. I think you hit the nail on the head there with human factors. It's we often think, coming from a technology, that if we build it and we demonstrate that it does X, Y, and Z, then people will adopt it. They will absolutely fall over themselves to get their hands on your technology. But it's simply not the case. And over the years, I've seen some fantastic technologies fail to be adopted into healthcare systems for very trivial reasons. There was a famous case where an investigation was done into a rather expensive piece of kit that got bought by a hospital. And it turned out it hadn't been used because the hospital staff had forgotten the password and they didn't know how to reset it. And so actually understanding those human factors in bringing technology into the hospitals is really, really critical. Understanding who is going to be your user, what is their opinion of it, what is the context of how they're going to be using it, what else are they doing at the time they will be using your technology, how does it fit into that clinical workflow, are all really, really critical things that you need to have a really strong understanding of if your technology is really going to be adopted. And I think, you know, the AI award for us will help us put our technology into that clinical setting to get really good feedback. It also allows us to put it in the hands of the doctors who are going to be using it. And the doctors always want to try it before they start using it properly. So it gives them sort of a safe space to start trying it and using it and forming their own opinions before they have to sort of make a leap and say, yes, I think we should be using that technology. But what else is really, really critical for us is that patient engagement piece. So for us in endoscopy, it is quite normal that a patient will be conscious and will be looking at the endoscopy screen during the procedure. And so the last thing we want to do is have, you know, alarms or things on the screen that might cause concern to the patient. And so we worked very, very closely with a patient group from day one, and they've helped us build a user interface and display of information that they are comfortable with and they would be comfortable with if they saw this during procedures. And I think having that patient element is really, really key. But the fact that the NIHR has, in this call and all the calls, has a strong focus on PPI, I think is really, really great, because it reminds people that that is such a core component to adoption in a healthcare system like the NHS.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much for those answers. And just on that PPI point, we continue in our application process to think about how best we integrate that, and we are kind of fully committed to how central it has to be in our process, and how important it is to ultimately allow technologies to be successfully implemented by rooting what they do in user needs. So I know that won't be new to this audience at all, but it's something that very much we have at the heart of how we evaluate and run our awards. So thanks for talking about that, Peter. The next question is more at Sam and Joe. So we've had a question from the audience, which is, how do we reconcile the need for widespread rollout of these tools with the fact that individual trusts have autonomy around their purchasing decisions? To what extent are the national bodies going to be directive about this? So let me kind of talk about the commissioning aspect of that, and then Sam and Joe, it'd be good if you could come in with your reflections around how the award is designed to kind of organically spread and build momentum amongst kind of partners for wider rollout. So on the formal commissioning side of what happens when we have technologies that have NICE guidance or approval by Public Health England for deployment in a national screening programme, there's a live debate about what the kind of commissioning and procurement frameworks to be used are, and that's one of the things that the Accelerated Access Collaborative, which is the team where I sit, are sort of well versed having in relation to non-AI technologies, and we're sort of applying some of the same methodologies and engaging some of the same stakeholders around AI tech. So the kind of formal commissioning and procurement frameworks kind of under development, and that's very much kind of watch this space, but our active discussions. Sam and Joe, it'd be good if you could talk about how we're kind of designing the structure of the awards to promote that that sort of wide scale adoption and wide scale sort of support for these technologies as they progress through the award.
Sure. Sam, do you want to go first on this one because I went first on the last one, or do you want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that we're really emphasizing, particularly, and you'll see it in our updated guidance when it comes out, is we're emphasizing the sort of exit points of the different phases, and the key to that is sort of ensuring that when a product reaches the end of that phase, it actually has all of the information and criteria it needs to progress to the next stage. So, for instance, for phase 3 awards, these are the first kind of real world tests of these technologies. So, the first time it's sort of being used in a live kind of clinic setting. And so the idea there is that they gather all of the relevant information that they need, sort of barriers to implementation, clinicians and patients' views on, actually using the technology, things like regulatory compliance, issues with connections to NHS technology systems. So the idea is that these awards will be used to gather this information, which will then help the innovators to provide a case for a wider rollout. So, if you go to a foundation trust and you say, I've got this really strong case, it saves you money here and here. We have feedback from clinicians, they love it. We have feedback from patients, they love it. We've trialed it in all these places and this is how it works. And so I think the idea is that we are working towards building evidence to allow, as Dan said, that organic rollout.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, so we went with a demand-led approach on our site selection for this first time of the award, but we'll be building on sites to implement further technologies that are successful in the award. So I think if we build a nice evidence base and we have some really good sites involved, it will be easier and come a bit more natural for people be able to roll it out, because they can look to other sites and see what worked there.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Sam. Before we sort of move to wrap up, Peter and Anne-Marie, are there any things that are kind of top of your mind which you think you would you're going to be speaking with an industry voice around what you want from the national bodies around procurement routes and how commissioning will work for these products at scale? Are there any sort of live discussions internally you're having about the UK market in that respect?
Peter, do you want to begin with this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the challenges is understanding the plethora of routes into a hospital. There are just so many, and it's so varied, that having a single point of contact would actually save us an enormous amount of time and effort, not simply in trying to pick an approach, but also in the admin and the dealing of it as well. So certainly something in that regard would, narrowing it down to save everyone time, I think would be difficult. Now, I know these things are, highly regulated and lots of laws around these things. So it's never quite as simple as we always hope it would be. But I think there's certainly a huge amount of scope for streamlining that. Look, I think we as industry and as tech companies, we build our technology with the idea that we want to bring it to as many people as possible. And when the reasons we can't get it to those people is because of the administrative burden, or because of the sheer volume of paperwork or complexity of the system, I think what it leads to is companies taking their technology to other markets first. And I think that's why traditionally, and someone mentioned it in the previous discussion, traditionally lots of companies that have developed technology like ourselves in the UK often start to target markets abroad, because accessing larger patient bases and larger markets is easier, is an easier route to grow quicker. So I think there's a real opportunity to enable companies who have built their technology in the UK, who have had their foundation in academic research in the UK, all the way through to delivering it across the NHS, because that would be an absolute dream come true.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Peter. So we had a lot more road we could have covered, but unfortunately we're out of time. We've now got a 10-minute break before we return for the regulator session at 1:45. Firstly, a big thank you to all the participants who've joined us on the panel, to Peter, Anne-Marie, Joe and Sam, and also a big thank you to everyone who's kind of dialed in and made time to attend this session. It's very important for us that we build up an active relationship with would-be applicants, and we'll be building on that through our communications program going forward. The next round call will open in early November. We will be publishing a suite of documents that we've referred to, both through the AAC website, the AI Award, and also through NIHR. And we will be building up a community of practice and making sure that we're kind of capturing emails and making sure we're pushing out relevant content to people who are interested in it. So thank you very much. I hope this is the start of an ongoing dialogue rather than a kind of one-off session, and enjoy the rest of your day and rest of the conference.